Hey y'all, welcome to the Crooked P. Today I have a really unique story to tell you. I started out researching Jesse James. Angie, my wife, she was born in Grandview, Missouri, which is in Jackson County, which sits just south of Clay County, where Jesse James is from. Angie's uncle's name was Dick Little. Jesse James' gang member was named Dick Little. So, hey, there's got to be some kind of connection here. I love going through family trees, family history, so I started digging. Well, I found out more than I ever possibly could have dreamed of. I started with Jesse James and ended up with Billy the Kid. And now, before I started filming here, I actually did find my link back to Jesse James. So please stay with me, bear with me as I explain this all. And hopefully by the time I'm all done, this will make a lot more sense. Okay, if some of you out there know how to explain this better than me, well, explain it in the comments, please. But this is the best I can come up with to explain where we're going with this. Angie's dad's great-grandpa's brother is John William Poe. He was born on a tobacco farm in Maysville, Kentucky, Mason County, I believe it is. He was one of 11 children. Trying to do the math here quick in my head. There was 3 boys, so there was 8 girls. John was born with a twin, Joseph. Joseph lived to be 10 years old. He died in 1860. I could not find any stories on what happened to him or why. His parents were Nathan and Louisa Poe. He was determined to live on the western frontier, and he saved all of his money so he could make that dream come true. He even played the violin at dances to make extra money. By July 1870, John had begun his journey and was employed as a farmhand near Kansas City, Missouri. John actually left Kentucky against the advice of his father and his grandfather, both of who urged him to go to college and forget the West. When John ran out of money, he basically had to work his way west. In the spring of 1871, he was a rail hand in Topeka for the Santa Fe Railroad. In the fall of 1871, he was in Oklahoma Territory, Indian country, cutting timber ties, railroad ties for the Santa Fe. John finally saved $300, so he bought a horse and a saddle and stocked himself for the 250-mile journey to Fort Griffin, Texas. Now, I did not know that Fort Griffin was actually a abandoned fort nowadays. I thought it was still a town. Um, they built the fort in 1867, and it lasted all the way up to 1881. There's some couple buildings left standing, some ruins of the old buildings, but it's a national historical site now. But back in 1877, 1878, there were a couple people there that you might know. Someone by the name of Doc Holliday, he met Big Nose Kate there. He was also dealing faro in the Beehive Saloon, and a lifelong friendship started between him and Wyatt Earp and the Earp family. But John got to Fort Griffin in 1873, and him and a partner, they started buffalo hunting. By 1879, they'd hauled approximately 20,000 buffalo hides into Fort Griffin, and they got paid roughly up to $3 a hide. So it was a lucrative business. But by 1879, John kind of saw the beginning of the end for buffalo hunting. So, what's he going to do now? So, as John's starting a new chapter of his life, Billy the Kid, well, his life, he's got about 2 years left now, 3 years left. Now, like I said, John had to make a decision. He needed to find a new way to make a living. Now, why he came up with this, I don't know. But he got into law enforcement. He held various positions: Fort Griffin Town Marshal, U.S. Deputy Marshal. He did a couple other town marshals until he met up with the Canadian River Cattlemen Association. They hired him as a stock detective. His primary assignment was to break up rustling activity in the northern panhandle of Texas. And who would you think was one of the biggest rustlers was Billy and his pals. This is how John gets involved with Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. It all starts right here. In July of 1881, John Poe was in White Oak, New Mexico, when one of his former informants contacted him. He told him that he heard two men talking about Billy and that Billy was in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Well, after hearing that, John rode to Lincoln, New Mexico, where Pat Garrett was, and told him what he knew. Pat really didn't believe John, but he's like, well, if this is what you believe, we will go check it out. So they left Lincoln, New Mexico. They rode to Roswell, New Mexico, and they picked up a third man by the name of McKinney. His name was Thomas Kip McKinney. Once they left Roswell, everybody knew that in April, Billy had broken out from the Lincoln jail, and they knew who Pat Garrett was, and they knew who Thomas McKinney was. He was Garrett's deputy. They did not know who the third man was, John Poe. But anyway, when they left Roswell, they rode one direction and circled back around to go the 80 miles down to Fort Sumner. Just so if anybody of Billy's friends were watching anything, trying to throw them off their trail. So anyway, they rode. They finally got to Fort Sumner, and they weren't sure that Billy was there at the time. No one in the area really thought that, Billy was sentenced to death, that he would stay in the area. They thought they were long gone. But the informant of Poe told them Billy was there. So anyway, they get to Fort Sumner, and they sent Poe in because nobody knew John. So he could, he asked around, went to the bar, talked to the guys, made up a story why he was there. And then there was a peach orchard. So they met, Garrett, McKinney, and Poe met at the peach orchard. And Garrett still wasn't believing that Billy was there. And he wanted to ride out. But John was like, well, let's just go talk to Pete Maxwell. He's a very known, important figure here in Fort Sumner. Let's go talk to him. So they go over to Pete Maxwell's house. Pat Garrett goes inside Pete Maxwell's bedroom to talk to Pete. Pete was in bed. Thomas McKinney, there's a picture that's included. You're going to see a picket fence. McKinney sat down by the opening of the fence, and John Poe kind of sat up on the porch. Well, lo and behold, a couple minutes after Pat Garrett went into Pete Maxwell's bedroom, here comes walking up Billy the Kid. Now, John Poe never met the kid, never saw the kid, didn't know who it was. Well, the kid comes up. He's in his stocking feet t-shirt. He had a gun in his right hand, a knife in his left hand. Uh, he was kind of startled by Poe because the way he was sitting on the porch, he couldn't see him until he actually walked up onto him. And he pointed his revolver at John and said, I can't speak Spanish any better than I can speak Dakota, but Quinez, who's there? He said that about 2, 3 times. Who's there? Who's there? John got up, tried to talk to him because John didn't know this was Billy. He was just trying to get him out of there. And Billy slowly backed into Pete Maxwell's bedroom. Well, it was dark in the bedroom. Billy couldn't see who was in the bedroom. Pat Garrett was sitting on the bed. When Billy backed into the bedroom, he's like, Pete, who are these guys? Who are these guys? Well, Pat Garrett recognized his voice. And Pat didn't even stand. He just kind of shot from the sitting position. And he hit Billy in the heart. And that was the demise of Billy the Kid. Uh, Now, Pat Garrett came out of the room after the shooting, and there is some confusion because John Poe did say, Pat, you shot the wrong guy. Well, the reason John said that is one, he never met Billy. He didn't know what Billy looked like. And he never thought that Billy would just come walking up in the middle of the night. Well, once Pete Maxwell came running out of the bedroom, they got a candle, whatever, put it in the window, and they could actually see it was Billy the Kid. After the death of Billy the Kid, uh, John he kind of distanced himself for it. He put it from this. He put it behind him, and he did write a book after the encouragement of a bunch of friends and family. Uh, he did finally write a book. I don't know, it was 20, 30 years later, but it was still pretty accurate, like it had happened yesterday. He did say in his book, I have been in many close places and through many trying experiences, both before and after this occurrence, but never in one where I was so forcibly impressed with the idea that a higher power controls and rules the destinies of men. To me, it seemed that what occurred in Fort Sumner that night had actually been foreordained. And the reason John said that is he was totally taken by surprise by Billy the Kid. Billy had his gun on him, but Billy didn't fire. He asked him 3 times, Who is this? Who is this? Who is this? But he never fired on Poe. He just backed into the bedroom. When Billy got into the bedroom, he asked Pete 2 more times, Who are these people? Who is this? And although he had his gun out, he had draw on Pat, on John, he never fired. So to John, this is kind of like it was supposed to happen. Now, after the death of Billy the Kid, there was a jury inquest the next day. They recognized the body. A lot of people say there was no picture taken of Billy, like Jesse James or the Wild Bunch, or not the Wild Bunch so much, but like the Dalton Boys in Coffeeville and stuff. Basically, there's no photographer around. They're out in the middle of nowhere. Uh, but after Billy was shot, a bunch of the local ladies came, took his body, they laid it on the table, and they prepared him for death. So Billy's body was seen by a lot of people. Now, theorists out there say it's Brushy Bill Roberts or John Smith. Um, Everybody likes to think that Billy survived that night, but he did not. He was shot and killed by Pat Garrett, witnessed by Thomas McKinney and John Poe. Um, and even myself, you kind of romanticize Billy, but Billy was pretty ruthless, according to if you go back into the stories of the old timers, a lot of the people were afraid of Billy. Uh, they were happy when Billy was shot and killed. So, I mean, yeah, everybody wants to believe Billy lived, but he wasn't quite the person that he was made out to be. Now, after the death of Billy the Kid, John never returned to Texas. He actually stayed in Lincoln, and in 1882, he became the sheriff of Lincoln County after Pat Garrett stepped down. Now, John spent a lot of time in Roswell, New Mexico, and that's where he met a young gal named by the name of Sophie Alberding. Actually, uh, Pat Garrett and Sophie's uncle, or it just says relative, Captain J.C. Lee. He's a prominent businessman. He was known as father of Roswell. They were actually matchmakers in setting Sophie and John up. John was 32, Sophie was 19, and in May 5th of 1883, they were married. Now, in a twist of fate, since John was the sheriff of Lincoln County, the county provided him room and boarding in the Lincoln County jail. Now, John and Sophie's bedroom was the same room where Billy the Kid was held, where he escaped and he killed Bell and Ullinger. Now, on February 4th of 1884, Sophie and John did have one child, but unfortunately, the child only survived a couple hours. In 1885, uh, John left law enforcement. He tried a bunch of different business ventures, but he spent most of his life trying to make Sophie happy. In 1900, he went into banking. He was a very successful banker. In 1895, John built Sophie a handsome new home in the center of Roswell. For many years, it was identified as the most beautiful home in Roswell. Poe was recognized as a powerful and distinguished businessman and citizen by 1895. So John had a good life. From a simple boy born on a Kentucky tobacco farm, all he wanted to do was go west. Little did I, it's hard to imagine he would do what he did. I mean, running with Pat Garrett, knowing him personally, being at the death of Billy the Kid. He went to Tombstone when the Earp family would have been there. He was in Fort Griffin, Texas, when Doc Holliday and Big Nose Kate. I mean, for someone with just a simple dream to go west, to see and do what John did, it just blows my mind. Um, I can only imagine, people can only imagine doing what John did. Now, John was active and healthy until the last few months of his life. He lived as always a quiet, unassuming man who placed honor and ethics above all personal attributes. Throughout his life, he practiced kindness to his fellow man and abhorred the use of force in any circumstance unless there was no other remedy. And even in law enforcement, John was the same way. Uh, he used the least amount of force possible to subdue the criminals. So John never changed much in his life. Well, this is the story of my father-in-law's great-great-great-grandpa's brother. Now, I did tell you at the beginning of the video, when I started recording, I did find a link back to Jesse James. Uh, my link, it's a pretty simple one, but John Poe's father, Nathan, in December 26, 1888, he passed away, and he was buried at the Mount Olivet Cemetery in Clay County, Missouri. Well, that's the same cemetery um, Jesse James was buried at. So my story came full circle. So anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate you giving me your time. If you enjoyed this, please give me a like. Please subscribe because I don't know. Next video might be better. Could be worse. I haven't really figured out what I'm going to do next. But thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.